Hi, and welcome to another exciting pirate news. With you tonight is, of course, your fabulous and wonderful one and only captain of Massachusetts, Jamie,
Ahoy.
the magnificent Malt, always magnificent, and Steve, our fearless leader from the underground.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have some good topics to cover tonight. So I don't know where you want to begin, gentlemen.
So let's talk about tomorrow and right to repair.
Oh, that's a good one.
In 2012 and 2020, Massachusetts overwhelmingly approved a number of laws that would increase the availability of information and tools to repair your privately owned devices. We talked about this last week when it was revealed that Subaru is going to stop collecting information on Massachusetts cars rather than turn it over to you with your legal right to access that information. But we've got something like we need to expand the rights to also include digital devices. The Digital Right to Repair Act, which is H341 and S166, 341 in the House, 166 in the Senate, guarantees our right to repair electronics. It means the manufacturers are going to have to provide independent repair shops with access to like manuals, service information, security updates, and replacement parts. So this is really important because with the new iPhone coming out, the iPhone, 13, there is a computer on the glass that will disable the Face ID functionality if you get the glass on the phone repaired or replaced by an independent repair firm. So this would basically prevent Apple from locking out independent repair firms with that kind of nonsense. So if this is something you're interested in, the Mass Public Interest Research Group is holding a lobby day with us Monday, November 8th. There's a sign-up form on our blog and their website if you're interested in coming to it. Massachusetts.repair.org has a great form email. And if you can on Monday, please call your legislators and their phone offices to tell them that this has to happen. We are very bad at taking care of these incredibly expensive little devices. And we need to make it as easy as we can to oh, I didn't realize it was quite that bad when I showed my camera on phone.
But I mean, it falls down to the question of where ownership is. Why are we paying so much money to not own our own phones, not own all the stuff? I mean, there used to be a common thought back in the day that once it hit your screen, it was yours. It was on your copy. And somewhere along the lines, they're trying to pull the plug out. And this is very much a pirate issue.
I blame the blockchain. Oh my God, we need to talk about the blockchain.
Do we?
And yeah, NFTs are money laundering now. The Build Back Better bill included tax information that now declares coins and NFTs to be currency, meaning that all of the crypto brokers have to send the information to the government so that they can tax the tax avoiders.
Well, it's how you know when you've made the big time.
Mm-hmm.
Pay your taxes.
I never really understood the whole obsession with NFTs. It's you could spend money on so much, spend it on better things.
Oh, it's money laundering. It's 110% money laundering. So basically, what is happening here is that people who got in early have a quantity of coins that they cannot actually sell. They have more coins than there is liquidity in the market. So they're basically dumping coins into these NFTs to try and sell them to suckers to get the cash.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you have like an entire vault of Weeble bucks that are only useful for buying pachinko coins, you trade your Weeble bucks for pachinko coins, and then the pachinko coins become the money.
Well, I mean, it's essentially, ostensibly, NFTs confer some degree of ownership, right? You're owning some digital asset. Unfortunately, most of the stuff that I've seen pretty much look like crap, but
it's garbage.
I know there's like one photographer, YouTuber who I like, who has some good stuff and like macro photography and stuff. But largely, a lot of the stuff that people are seeing are like, I don't know, pictures of like cartoons of animals anthropomorphized.
They're not even hand drawn. They're just thrown together with a bunch of random assets, like you would make a paper doll in old Flash games. And
wait, was Jeremy referring to Dogecoin?
No, that's something entirely different, but related. No, but I mean, I look at this stuff and it's like, I mean, it's the reactions of some people have been, oh, I bought this thing for $200,000 or $600,000, and no one has the right to copy it. And it's literally, the internet is a copying machine. You're not going to prevent people from doing it. And anyone who's like going to spend that like a house, like literally a house on ownership of digital art is just, they have too much money as far as I'm concerned.
It's a waste of money is the thing.
But I do want to address this concept of ownership, because it's something that NFTs sell themselves on, but are actually not at all providing. So the registry itself goes to either a URL or a listing within a privately managed basically database. So if the firm that issued the NFT goes belly up, so does the certificate. And if the URL changes, then effectively the NFT is just broken, because it no longer, your ownership rights no longer point to the thing it's claimed it points to.
So Apple should really get involved in this, because clearly they're trying to take ownership away of our devices. So they should now take ownership away of these digital assets, right? It's really their whole bailiwick.
It's, oh my God, it's just asinine. And every time I think it's going to fail, it doesn't. Like, the price of Bitcoin has gone up since it was announced that everyone is going to get fucked by the tax man.
Yeah, almost 65,000.
I don't know, man. Like,
anyway, so all this technology has real world implications. Can you talk about it, Steve?
Real world implications, like as in for just like
data
technology
centers?
Data centers. Oh yeah. So computing power. One of the things that sort of, find upsides and downsides to pandemics. Upsides were, there was a lot less air pollution. The downside is that data centers, basically came into parity with air transportation for carbon emissions. But actually tonight, what I really want to talk about is water. And this is a story I got word of from the Register. And we have one of our big tech companies, Google, with a data center in Oregon. I believe the city's name is pronounced the Dalles, Dalles. But anyway, they have a big data center there. It's right along the Columbia River, and they're planning to expand it at some point in the future. Now, the county where this place is located, 90% of them are under an extreme drought order. So there is a real shortage of water. And so people started asking, like, so this Google data center next to the river, like, how much water is it using? And how much water is the city selling it? So someone, asked and filed a public records request, which the city denied, based on their position that this was a trade secret not subject to disclosure under Oregon public records law. So in theory, if you knew how much water they were using, you might be able to figure out how much, how many servers they were cooling. That was the basic argument. But anyway, this is going to court. And it's there is a public interest in this kind of information because, if your city is in a major drought, and a lot of the West seems to be, in a bit of a drought, how much water for all practical purposes, an industrial user is using, and what they're paying for it is, something that, people, have an interest and a right to know, especially if, there's an arrangement such that the taxpayers are subsidizing Google's water usage. So, this is going to go around in court for a while. As a point of comparison, there is a Google data center in Red Oak, Texas, that it using about 1.4 billion gallons of water per year for cooling. Now, and apparently Google has a program to develop responsible policies around water usage. However, it seems that though these policies apply to Google's offices, but not necessarily their data centers. So look out, Nestle. Google is coming for you too.
Yeah, one of the things I find funny is why is it the casinos can recycle their water efficiently in Las Vegas, but somehow data centers can't?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, one of the trends in data center design is to do as much passive cooling as possible. Besides, not using a ton of water, it also means that you're not paying the energy it costs to do the cooling itself. So heat exchangers that, sit outside and just basically, warm the outside during the winter. It's effective for several months out of the year in Massachusetts. If you go to Scandinavia, they take the heat from their data centers and they will heat things like college campuses and municipal buildings. I don't know how cold Oregon gets in the winter, but I mean, gosh, it seems like you should be able to at least, do some sort of recovery on the heat, or at least use it in some sort of a closed system, or pump it, do heat pumps and geothermal, and send it off into the ground, because if you go down far enough, it is kind of cold, and geothermal it's an effective way to to move heat around.
And I think it speaks to a larger problem that we're seeing from corporations that are just not really adopting policies that are really going to take care of this planet for the long term. It's that corporate profit, except without thinking of like long distance.
Yeah, one of the complicating factors is that the town has declared the water usage a trade secret. Like, it's been fought to be released in a few states, but there's no comprehensive federal guiding on it.
Yeah, and if there's, and if there, yeah, I'm kind of curious what kind of non-disclosure agreement they have. I mean, in my town, I can take a parcel number, plug it into a web form, solve a CAPTCHA, and see, what a given property paid for this bill or that bill. It is something that should be a public record, especially when you're talking about something like, water.
So one reason to hope is Microsoft is in the process of developing a line of fully submersible, semi-autonomous data centers with its Project Natick, and it's a watertight cube that just sits anchored near the bottom of the ocean. And actually, now that I say that out loud, that does sound rather sinister.
As if the
Be careful of the data center, Mr. Bond.
as if the
It's a wet board.
carbon emissions weren't warming the oceans enough. Sure, let's go throw a server farm down in the bottom of the ocean.
That'll help the salmon.
So Microsoft says that due to rapid mixing in ocean currents, the temperature impact just a few meters downstream of the data center is undetectable, which Microsoft has never lied in the past. Sorry.
No, neither of us could sit through that one with a straight face.
I mean, Oregon, we already had the vast fires in Oregon and Northern California. So water's rather important. It just seems weird to say that that's a trade secret.
Mm-hmm.
But, they'll try and do whatever they can to hide things.
Does Google just want to be where the weed is legal? Like, I can't imagine they let their employees have fun.
I don't know. Do they have? Well, they're in Massachusetts. Presumably they're in Colorado. I have no idea.
The Landsat 9 satellite has sent back the first image of Earth. That's nice.
Whose satellite is this?
Landsat 9.
Okay. I thought
that's NASA, isn't it?
Yep. Here's the link.
So one of the things that we did yesterday was we went out to this Boston Seaport district, and we went and continued our effort to map surveillance cameras in Boston. And so there were 4 of us who went out, 2 veterans, for want of a better term, and two new folks interested. And so we talked about mesh networks and some of the efforts in Boston we're trying to get off the ground, as well as Matt continued walking through the Seaport district and finding cameras. It's kind of interesting. There's a bunch of buildings that are in there that you can see the wires at the corners where the surveillance cameras will be, but they're not there yet because the building's not complete. So we'll have to come back and map that particular zone. And it's a lot of construction going down there, which, in 30 years is going to be underwater. So yay.
Yeah, wasn't a bunch of Boston underwater with the King's Tide?
Yeah, they had some, of course it's Twitter, so you have to take it with a grain of salt, but there were a bunch of people posting pictures with stuff underwater in Boston.
Mm-hmm. It's coming. And what are we going to do about it? Build a giant, they're talking about building a giant wall out there in the harbor just to slow it down.
I've heard a couple of ideas raised, and ultimately, if you get to the point where you're below sea level, either because the sea rises or the ground sinks, eventually you could find yourself in the position of New Orleans behind a bank of levees. They work really well when they keep the water out, and not so well when they don't. I am personally in an area that will be subject to sea level rise and storm surge in a couple of years. It's just sort of the hydrology of Boston Harbor and the Mystic River and the tributaries that feed it. And of course, my backyard. And, Cambridge, for those who are really interested in, getting into the weeds about, flooding potential in areas nearby Boston, Cambridge's Climate Change Vulnerability Assessment, it's called a CCVA, has some really cool pictures of what that could look like. But yeah, it's in an ideal world, we would start doing managed retreat, where you say these properties are at risk. We're just going to buy the property owners out, and we're going to, do whatever green infrastructure, et cetera, to, turn what used to be developed area into sort of a barrier against floods. And that would take a lot of freaking money. So what's going to happen is, if you're just going to have to, you're just going to have to try your luck. And if my house gets swept off the foundation and someone offers to buy me out, I'll consider it. But otherwise, the economic incentives behind flood insurance, like the most valuable part of the property is the land, and that's not insurable itself. The economics will keep you in place. But yeah, it's gonna be a big freaking mess.
Well, the Fed doesn't lack for money, so easily we could step in and just add another few zeros and just buy folks out. One other thing I forgot to mention, Malt and I and whoever wants to join us are going to be out on the 12th of December at 12 a.m. So 12 p.m. Sorry, not 12 a.m. That would be really early. At 12 at the DCU Center at the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. And Major Taylor Boulevard Avenue in Worcester to map surveillance cameras. So come on and join us, and we'll have reminders as the weeks go by.
Plenty of parking kitty corner to where we will be meeting. And I checked the calendar. Evanescence and Hailstorm is going to be playing the DCU Center on the 18th, but on the 12th they were going to be wrapping up some kind of cheerleading competition. So there's a chance that I might get beaten up by a group of cheerleaders.
Why?
I don't know.
I'll do my best to endeavor that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, I go to places with no intention of misbehaving, and yet people almost beat me up anyway.
Mm-hmm. So how far is the DCU Center from the commuter rail station?
It's actually quite an easy walk, not even half a mile.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that is quite an easy walk.
You
one quick thing I want to say to Steve real quick before we get too off topic. Can we just turn your house into a boat, and then you literally be 100% a captain on your own boat?
Well, there's it's happened once before. I mean, from a practical standpoint, I am not in a V zone, which means, it's just going to be water and not, rapidly high velocity water. So if, I can just raise things up, 6-8 feet, I'll be fine. I don't know if I'm allowed to raise my house 6 or 8 feet at this time. And, zoning, it's, you have these height limits. So, but now you've got, you really want the height limit to be relative to, the flood elevation and not to the ground. It's one of those things we got to work on.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying you could have premier dock space.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine the commute from your dock.
So there's actually, normally we call it a deck right now, but it will turn into a dock, and it's already got a little, set of stairs that goes down and a bit of a landing at the bottom. So yeah, it totally worked for a boat.
Sorry for interrupting, Malt.
You good?
But I just wanted to say that. But please don't get beat up by cheerleaders or nuns or anybody else. That would
I did not start that nun fight.
There's a joke in there about rulers.
Ha!
I like
There's
what you did there.
nothing about that. So our last story today is Massachusetts is looking to send direct payments of up to $2,000 to certain essential workers. Joe, can you enlighten us on this?
So this is something that Charlie Baker put forth, and I have mixed feelings on how Charlie Baker runs things, but at least he's trying to think of the people, especially those who are economically impacted the most, and those whose households have been the lowest income of households. But the problem with the bill is that they're only putting a small slice of what they should be given to those workers, you know, and a lot of it's being dumped into those bigger names and municipalities and stuff like that. So, but at least the thought that counts, I suppose. That being said, at least it's something, but none of it's been passed yet. We're still waiting to hear whether or not it's even going to go through or has a shot of going through.
So,
And how much money did Massachusetts get?
That
What were we allocated?
it was 4.8 billion. So nearly a tenth, not quite a tenth of that would be going to the actual people who are out there making sure that our entire society didn't collapse.
yeah, this isn't even $500 million.
Yeah.
But so you would get $2,000 if you met two conditions. One, that you have a household income of up to 300% of the federal poverty level, and you worked in person and not in a remote setting during the state of emergency from March 2020 to June 2021. So based on current poverty levels, this means that individuals up to $38,000 a year, as well as households of four up to $79,000 a year. There might be additional details that are worked out later. This is a work in progress. But yes, this is something to harass your elected officials about again as well.
Make sure that more of that money's coming to the people who are out there keeping society going. All the people doing the DoorDash, all the people that were bringing food, all the nurses, pandemic workers. But honestly, some of them who were making a ton of money, who were working all the time, it really should be increased to everybody who was working through that mess. You know, not just like the poorest of the poor, but everybody who risked their lives to be out there saving people. All the EMTs, everybody.
It is much more efficient to simply make aid universal and then claw it back from the people who didn't need it using taxes, rather than making people jump through hoops.
Yippers. Yeah, no, they're gonna just make it even more headaches. And then, of course, they're going to rake that back with taxes, too, because they're going to say, oh, we gave you all this money. Let me get some of that back. So, but that being said, thank you for watching this evening. We really appreciate all of you. Please give us a like, a share, and come sign up for emails. I know we're always sending out all the information on a weekly basis. And definitely check us out. Sign up for Pirates and everything if you guys haven't yet. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming this evening. Appreciate you.
Pleasure as
Thanks
always.
all.
Be well.
And don't get beat up by nuns.